Great to be chatting here on the Colour of Country Life with the Regional Telecommunications Minister and a host of other portfolios as well, Bridget McKenzie. How are you going?
Great to be with you, Ricky. Well, it's 72 hours before Australia makes a decision about who their next Prime Minister is going to be. So it's a pretty busy time.
Yep, 2 more sleeps, which people don't look forward to as much as Christmas, I suspect. Now, Bridget, look...
So true. They'll be glad it's over, I think.
We have been carefully analysing, because farmers are telling us mobile signal is so important for them. We had one guy from the New South Wales farmers recently telling us that he had to go and run his business over the landline because the tower went out of action. It's just critical for our farmers, and all I can get out of Labor is they're going to audit how many towers are needed. What's the Coalition's policy? Well, let's look at the track record first. What have you delivered in terms of mobile towers in the term of office the last 10 years?
Yeah, I find it just quite incredible, the Labor Party's lack of investment in rural and regional Australia. You saw it in Anthony Albanese's National Press Club address this week, where he's actually cutting hundreds of millions of dollars out of funding to regional programs. But when it comes to telecommunications, you're absolutely right. This is critical infrastructure for us to run our businesses out in the regions, for us to stay safe, and for us to now be able to access critical services like education and health services online. So since coming to government, we've committed to fund over 1,270 mobile base stations. We've also put another satellite in the air for those Sky Muster customers. We've expanded the NBN's footprint and its range and capability. And we've also put money into better connecting our emergency service providers out in communities, whether it's your rural fire service or your SES, making sure they're better connected for times of natural disaster. So that's what we've done. But what we do know is that there is great demand out there for more connectivity. And so in the budget we handed down recently, about 5 or 6 weeks ago, we put another $1.3 billion on the table to continue our desire to see rural and regional Australia have connectivity right across the board. We want to see another 8,000 kilometres of road connected around this country, and that $1.3 billion will be going to upgrade NBN fixed wireless towers to make sure they've got a larger footprint and that you can have greater, faster upload and download speeds. It's also going to increase what we call the Regional Connectivity Program, which now that we've sort of reached the end of life of base station programs, the telcos are much less and less likely to partner with us as a government to build those big mobile base stations. We've developed this program that recognises that, the highways and byways of regional Australia are very, very different. You might have topographical issues, you might have quite distinct valleys or mountaintops which need unique solutions that are just about your region, your town, your space. So we've got a program there to help communities get connected, which has been super popular. So we've put, a lot of money going forward into that as well over the next 5 years.
One of the challenges, correct me if I'm wrong, has been that getting a telco to actually go ahead with something the Coalition's willing to fund can be problematic. We've spoken with your Coalition colleague Tony Passon about this, the Liberal member for Barker, and he's talked about he's been pushing, he says, behind closed doors to get the federal government to pay 100% of the construction cost of some towers. Is that something you're looking at as an option if you just need that signal delivered and neither of the telcos is willing to do it?
Well, there's a range of ways to get that done, and Tony's, been a great advocate for getting his region connected. Sometimes we partner with state governments. Our regional connectivity program, though, allows us to be quite creative. So, when we started the Mobile Black Spot program, we were partnering with telcos who built the tower and all the kit on the tower. And really, if you were an Optus customer in a community that only had a Telstra tower, you had to basically switch your service. And that's been one of the great challenges, that to get that sharing of that infrastructure between the telcos, so that no matter who your telco carrier is, who your telco carrier is, you should be able to get a signal. So we've developed a program. We've got some partners that we're looking forward to being successful in future grant rounds, who are specialists in just the tower construction, for instance. And then all the telcos will be able to put their kit on it. So irrespective of who your carrier is, you'll be able to get a signal. And that's what we want to end up seeing. Not just that you get a signal, but that you have, as a rural and regional Australian, choice in who your carrier is, because we know that will then drive down the price as well.
Now, you hold the regionalisation portfolio as well as regional education. You've made some good announcements, especially when it comes to health training in parts of our broadcast areas. I think you've got a wet lab somewhere in the northwest of Victoria, for instance, or southwest of New South Wales. Just tell us a bit more about why the Coalition's focused on medical training in particular in regional areas.
Well, we know that access to highly qualified health professionals in rural and regional areas is a significant challenge. It's something we've focused on as a government. We've changed the way we train doctors in this country now. We make sure that we have opportunities for country kids to actually train for their entire 7 years to become a GP in a rural area. And that means they're 75% more likely to stay in a rural area. We're also doing that with allied health professionals as well. But you can't do that if you don't have the facilities available. And you mentioned one of the facilities that we're excited to begin construction on if we're successful on Saturday is what's called a wet lab in Mildura. It's partnering with La Trobe University. And it's going to be one of those sort of facilities that you can do health training in, and sometimes that can be a little messy, right? So you need not just a lecture theatre, you need laboratories which allow your students to have the full scope of training and practice. So we've partnered with La Trobe to do that. We've also got, we know that recruiting and retaining GPs in our regional and rural communities is very, very problematic. So we're providing more than $200 million a year to fund a network of rural clinical schools, university departments of rural health and regional training hubs and dental training sites to support extended rural placements in regional rural areas. So if students are doing their medical training or their dental training in a capital city university, we're actually going to fund them to have more time out in the regions practicing during their training, because we know that if they have a great experience when they're out here with us, they're going to be more likely to come back. And so in South Australia, for instance, this funding is going to help doctors and nurses training in areas like Port Lincoln, Whyalla, Mount Gambier, Murray Bridge and beyond. Similarly, in New South Wales and Victoria, Broken Hill, Griffith and Mildura. So we're very excited about that particular program.
Now, Bridget, before we go, we're running out of time, but you yourself are up for re-election in Victoria on the Coalition ticket, number 2 on that ticket, number 1 on the national ticket. What's your pitch to, I guess, all Victorians, but especially regional Victorians, for why they should look for you on the Senate ticket?
Well, Ricky, it's been a huge privilege to represent the great state of Victoria in the federal parliament, both as a senator, but more recently as a minister in the National Party, Liberal Party government. I fundamentally believe that living in rural and regional Australia shouldn't mean that you are unable to access quality health and education services, a fantastic career and job, and to be able to raise your family to have it in a sustainable environment. So I want to work hard to make sure regional Victoria is sustainable, prosperous and secure well into the future. And that means we've got to manage that budget very, very carefully. We've got to look after our national security and defence forces. And we've got to make sure that the regions aren't forgotten. And that's exactly why the National Party exists and continues to deliver in a coalition government.
Well, Bridget, thanks very much for your time. All the best on Saturday, and we'll catch you soon after that.
Thanks, Ricky.